Hello guys, and welcome back to another class of our course about the complete introduction to VBA with Microsoft Excel. So in today's class, what I want to practice is also a little bit of programming with Microsoft Excel. But what exactly I want to practice is basically moving inside of your Excel document. So why do I want to practice this? It's because it's a huge part of VBA. In other words, let's say you are creating your macro and you want to move from there to there to there to there to there. Basically there is a lot of movements, and understanding how exactly all this movement works, it's pretty important. So what I'll propose you guys to do today is something that is pretty simple. We're going to create two basic applications and learn to work with some elements. So basically what we are going to learn to work with will be with the range. So we are going to learn how to use range, and we also going to learn how to use offset. So basically you guys have a little basic knowledge about it. But what exactly I want to do is just practice it a little bit, so this way you guys will get a certain understanding of how it works, and you will also understand what is the difference between working with a relative reference and not a relative, and an absolute reference. So basically absolute reference means that it's always going to be generated at the same place, and how you can write a code that will be generated as a relative reference and a code that will be generated as an absolute reference. So let's start. So basically, as I said, what we are going to do today is just practicing how to move inside of Microsoft Excel when we are creating our macro. So first thing that I want you guys to do is pretty simple. So I want you to create yourself a module. So simply go in insert, and you can insert a module. So you can insert a module. So here I already have a module, so I'm not gonna insert no modules. Then when it's done, what we want to do is pretty much starting out our procedure, because we need to generate a sub procedure in this case. So if we want our macro to work, so how exactly do we generate this? It's pretty simple. Once again, we'll go to insert, and we are going to generate a sub procedure. So we'll call our macro test, and we're going to click on OK. So here we go, we have our sub procedure. So for the first part of the course, what I want to do is pretty simple. I want to generate a let's say something right there. So let's say I want to write down step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4, and so ever. And basically this is exactly what I will do. So let's start. Basically, how exactly can I write down step 1 right here? So pretty simple. It's pretty much the same way that we have done in the past few classes. So we'll use the active cell. So basically we're going to write down in the active cell, and we are going to use formula R1C1 and write down step 1. So let's write it down. So it's gonna be active cell. So in the active cell that we are on, we are going to write down formula R1C1. That's basically what we have learned. Well, this is the function or the element that we are going to use to be able to write down our text. So we have learned this in the past few classes. So when it's done, what we'll do, we are going to write down the text that we want to write down. So let's say I want to write down step 1 in this case. So I'll just write down step 1. Good. So right now I have everything that I want. Just put it in one word. So if I run my app, my step 1 is right there. So pretty simple. Next thing that I want to do, pretty simple. Let's say I want to move inside of my Excel spreadsheet. So in the case that I want to move, how exactly I can move inside of my Excel spreadsheet. So in this case, here at this particular moment, what's happening is that I want to have a relative reference. So basically what I will use the offset function. So once again, we are going to start our writing with the same thing. So we are going to start with active cell because we are going to move from our active cell that is right there. And where exactly we want to move. So let's say we want to move, I don't know, want to move from 3 cells. So 1, 2, then 3. So this is exactly what we are going to write down. So we'll write down offset. So we want to move. And in this case, we want to move from 3 steps. Then what will be our range? So basically our range will be all this, will be this spreadsheet. So we're going to use A1. So we'll write it down right there. So range in this case will be A1. And we want to select the cell in which we are going to move. So we'll simply write down dot select. Here we go, dot select. Alright, so we have everything that we need. So right now what happened is that we moved from here to 1, 2, 3. So you understand the basics of moving inside of your Excel spreadsheet. Alright, so we have got to our second element. What we want to do right there is pretty simple. Let's say we want to write down step 2. So we'll do pretty much the same thing. We are going to write down step 2. So we are selecting our cell at first. So we are going to write down selection. And then what exactly we're going to use? We are going to use formula R1C1. There we go. And what we'll write down is simply step 2. So if we decide to run our macro right now, what's going to happen is that it will write down step 1 there and move 3 cells on the right and write down step 2. So as you can see, this is exactly what happened. If I rerun my macro, it's going to start from here. So it will write down step 1 there, move from 3 cells, and write down step 2 on the 3rd cell. So as you can see, it's pretty simple to understand. So let's continue practicing it a little bit more. So let's say I want to move it down. So right now I want to move it down of 3 cells. How exactly will I do this? So pretty simple. I will use the same formula that is right there. I will start with my active cell and I'll use the offset function in the range A1. So I want to move 3 cells down, so it's going to be 3 and then 0. So I'll just select my function right there because I will reuse it. Here we go. But right now, instead of moving 3 steps on the side, I will move 3 steps down. So I will write it this way. Alright, so what I will do when I have moved, so right now what this function says, it's pretty simple. It says that we are going to move from here to basically there. And what exactly we want to do there? We want to write down step 3. So we're going to reuse this formula right there to write down step 3. So pretty simple. Here we go. And here we are going to write down step 3. So basically you get a little bit the point. So if we run our app, what's going to happen? We'll have step 1 there, 1, 2, 3, step 2 there, and 1, 2, 3, and step 3 there. So it will look something like this if we run our app. As you can see, we have our step 1, our step 2, and our step 3, which is pretty cool. Alright, next thing that we want to do, so if you guys, for example, if you see here that my text is in italic, it's simply because my cells are in italic and in bold. It's not because I have written this in the code. So I'll just select everything that I have there. And I'll take away all the italic and the bold. Here we go. So let's come back. Great. So right now we have everything that we need. So last thing that I want to practice, it's, let's say I want to move in a range that is on the side as well as down. So right now, let's say I am somewhere, I don't know, let's just delete all of this. Let's say I am right there. And I want to move 2 steps there, well, 3 steps, then 3 steps down. But now let's say I want to move right there. So how exactly can I do this? So pretty simple. I will simply move 2 steps on the side and 2 steps down. So pretty simple. Same thing if you want to come back. If you want to, for example, move back, what I will do, I will simply write down -3. So in this case, let's say we want to move back. So pretty simple. How exactly will we write it down? So we are going to reuse this formula right there. So first thing, we want to know where exactly we want to move. So let's say we have moved 3 steps down. Let's say we want to go 2 steps up. So we're going to write down -2. And let's say we want to go 5 steps on the other side completely. So it's going to be -5 in this case. And what exactly we want to write? We want to write last step. So we are going to reuse this formula right there to write down last step. Last step. And what we can do right now is simply run everything to be sure that it works fine. So as you can see, everything works fine. If we check out our code, so the first step was simply writing down step 1. We have it there. Then the second step is moving 2 steps on the side. So I'll just do it the right way so you guys understand it a little bit more. So let's try it out. Here we go. So first step is writing down step 1. So when it's done, the second step will be moving 2 steps on the side. This is exactly what's happening right there. So we have moved 2 steps on the side. Next step, writing down step 2. So we have it right there. Then we want to move 3 steps down again. So this is what's happening. And the next step will be writing down step 3. So we write down step 3. Now we are going to move 2 steps in the 2 steps up and 5 steps in the back. So this is what happened. We moved 2 steps up and 5 steps in the back, and we are going to write down last step. And this is exactly what happened. And this is basically how we are going to write down our function in Excel. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. Well, not how we will write down our function, but how we can move in Microsoft Excel with the use of VBA. So as you can see, it's not that complicated. So each time that you guys move to a certain cell, you can add a formula, a function. You can add, I don't know, for example, you want to make your text bold. If you want to add a certain function, if you can do whatever you guys want. As you can see, it's pretty simple. So this is how we move. Right now, let's say you guys want to work with specific cells, or in this case with absolute references. So how exactly we do this? So it's pretty simple. Instead of using the range, instead of using the range how we are using it, we're going to use it in a little bit different way. So first thing that we are going to do, we're going to create another module. So simply ask you guys to create another module. Me personally, I have another one right there, and we are going to create another function. So pretty simple. We'll go back in insert, and we're going to insert our procedure to be able to generate a sub procedure. So we'll call it we'll call it test 2, and we will click on OK. Great. So right now we have our second macro, and basically what we are going to practice is pretty much the same thing, but instead of having a relative reference, we're going to have an absolute reference. This means that whatever we are doing, Excel will always work on some specific cells. So basically, it's not gonna automatically move from one cell to another and adapt to which cell we have selected. So pretty simple. So basically, how exactly we want to start. So let's say we want to start by writing down something in our active cell that is there. So this is exactly what we'll do. We are going to write down in our active cell. So let's say in our active cell, we're going to write down start. So how exactly we do this? Pretty simple. We're going to reuse the same formula that we have used in our past class. So basically, we are going to write down active cell, and in our active cell, we are going to write down our formula. So pretty simple. Let's do it. So active, in this case, cell R1 C1. There we go. Here it is. Great. So what exactly we'll write down there? We'll write down step step 1. Alright, great. So basically what's going to happen right now is pretty simple. If we run our function, let's come back there. If we run it, what's going to happen is that it will write down step 1 right there. But if we move our mouse, what's going to happen is that it will still move with it. So basically we still have a relative function. If instead of if we want to lock our step 1 in a specific cell, what we need to do, we need to specify the range at first. And this is exactly what we will do right now. We're going to specify the range at first. So this is what we haven't done. So let's say we want to write down our step 1 in, I don't know, the case D8. So let's write it down. So basically we're starting out with the range. And in this case, our range will be in D8. So D8 will be the cell where we are going to write down our function in this case. So how exactly we write it down? We'll write down range D8. So basically we ask Excel to go at D8 and then select this range. So basically dot select. So right, what's going to happen is Excel is going to select this place. So it's going to select D8 and then it will write down step 1. So if we run our function, what's going to happen? As you can see, it's going to write down the function at D8. So even if I move somewhere right there, what will happen? Pretty much the same thing. So it will move back here and it will write down our function at D8. So pretty simple. So right now let's practice what we have just learned. So if we want to do pretty much the same thing, so instead of using a relative reference and using the offset function, we will have to use the range. So in this case, we will need to specify each time what's the exact cell in which we want to write down our function or the text or whatever we want. So let's say the second step will be writing that, going to the cell, I don't know, G18 and writing down step 2. So basically what we can do is simply reuse our formula because it's pretty much the same thing. So we'll go in our second cell right there. So it's going to be G18. We are going to write down step 2. And if we run our text, well, if we run our macro, as you can see, pretty much the same thing. So it goes from step 1 to step 2. If we wanted to write it down in a relative reference, what would have happened is that we would have written active cell with formula.r1c1. Basically right there, we would started there, and then we would have to move from 1 to 3 cells there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cells down. So this would be the same thing if we wanted to write it down in a relative reference way. But basically to use absolute references, it's like this. So let's say I want to add a little something basic because it's possible to add some basic things. Let's say I want to make my second step bold. So how exactly I will do this? So it's pretty simple. I will simply write down selection. And in this case, I will use the font and I want to make it bold. So here we go. And basically I want it to be true. And if I rerun everything, so as you can see, step 2 became bold. So it's pretty much the same. Well, the way it works is pretty much the same thing as a relative reference. The only difference between the absolute reference and the relative reference from a coding perspective is that in relative reference, as you can see there, what we're going to use the offset function basically to move from one cell to another cell, which makes a lot of sense because what we want to do is simply knowing how many cells we need to move on the right, on the left, or whatever. And in an absolute reference way, what's going to happen is that instead we are going to select the exact cell in which we want to work. Well, cell or range of cells. So basically it can be more than one cell. So I hope you guys right now understand the differences, and I hope that right now you guys will be able to move across your Excel spreadsheet simply by using VBA programming language. So that's it for this class, guys, and see you all in our next class.